Good afternoon. It's Friday the 29th of March. We're still in the European Union, for now anyway, and I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about one of the worst television series ever made, which fits into this series made in the 1970s and their cars, ITC's crowning achievement, or lack thereof, The Adventurer. Monty Berman and Dennis Spooner, who'd had real success working on shows like The Baron, The Champions, Rattle Hawk at Deceased, Department S, and Jason King, decided in, I think it was 1972, that they'd like to make another show of this sort of vein. And it didn't turn out very well. Due to budgetary constraints, they were limited to 25 minutes an episode as opposed to an hour. The show was made on 16mm film and not 35mm film, so it looks really terrible. And they had to have sponsorship by Chevrolet, which means there's lots of cars to talk about. Whether you find it interesting, I suppose, is a personal preference. But one thing they did do is choose an American star who'd been in lots of films and television shows up until that point. A chap called Gene Barry, who plays the very originally named character Gene Bradley, assisting Mr. Bradley on his missions. He's supposed to be a cross between a spy, a famous film star, and a businessman, which doesn't work particularly well. Is his boss in the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Parminter, played very well by Barry Morse. He's very funny in the role. Catherine Schell as Diane, and Garrick Hagon as Gavin. Gene Barry had this enormous complex about people being taller than him in the show, and he put his height on his personal stats as 6 foot, but he's probably 5'9", maybe even less. So Stuart Damon, who was contracted to be his sidekick for majority of episodes, only lasted about 2 episodes because Gene Barry saw he was 6'2" and decided that he didn't want him in the show. So they had to replace him with Garrick Hagon as Gavin. Catherine Schell was also a little bit tall for a lady, and so Gene Barry didn't like her. But later on, Gene Barry was unavailable for 2 episodes, and so they brought her back. So she actually appears in quite a lot of them, and she's really, really good as well. The problems are not particularly with the 3 sort of sidekicks. They're with Gene Barry himself. People say that The Adventurer is by far the worst ITC series ever made, and I'd probably agree with that. Monty Berman and Dennis Spooner by this time, as Scott Productions, like a sort of sub-unit of ITC, had been on this sort of bandwagon for years. I mean, starting up at probably in The Saint or before that, when Monty Berman and Robert S. Baker made budget B movies in Britain in the 1950s under the name of Tempian Films, and the stuff that was wearing really thin by this stage. The plots are ludicrous, they don't make any sense, the direction's not particularly good. It's just not a very good production, although the 3 sidekicks that they chose, Mr. Parminter, Barry Morse, Diane as Catherine Schell, and Gavin as Garrick Hagon, they're pretty interesting, but the rest of it's really not worth watching. So let's talk about the cars and Chevrolet's sponsorship of the show. Now, if you watch the episodes carefully, it's quite clear that General Motors had a big hand in the cars in the series. There's a few exceptions to this rule, but virtually all of them do have General Motors vehicles quite prominently featured. So Gene Barry himself, his main car is a 1972 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, also known as a C3, had a 454 cubic inch engine, massive V8. That car actually survives, and I think someone's trying to restore it at the moment. That's an LL212K. He also drives in a chase in Amsterdam. They actually did do location filming in Holland and in the south of France, and in Germany and lots of other places for this series. So it looks reasonably expensive. You can avoid the terrible sort of 16mm film quality. He drives a 1971 Opel Manta in a chase with a 1971 Opel Record Sprint Coupe. The Opel Record looks a lot more interesting than the Manta. He also, in a couple of episodes, I think 3 of them, he drives a red 1972 Chevrolet Camaro SS. And one episode, he, for some reason, has a very nice 1972 Alfa Romeo Spider 1600 Junior. That's well worth sort of seeking out. What's the episode called? Little Girl Lost, I think it's called. I don't watch the series very much because it's, well, it's not very good. When Diane was allowed to do things and Gene Barry hadn't banned her for being too tall, she also had a Chevrolet Camaro. Hers was a 1972 yellow Rally Sport. That's right, Rally Sport. That was in 7 episodes. And as far as Parminter and Gavin were concerned, they didn't have a sort of very well assigned car. They tended to have whatever the General Motors publicity department would be lending them at the time. But the most prominent one was the brand new at the time for 1972, a 1972 Opel Record. One was yellow and one was green. I don't know if there are any fans of those out there, but yeah, they're very smart looking cars at the time. Other vehicles of interest, given this is sponsored by Chevrolet, were a 1972 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu. That's in one of the episodes. I think it's called Return to Sender, in the south of France, which is always very glamorous, and a couple of Vauxhall press cars. One of them was a 1972 Vauxhall Ventura FE. Now, this was the sister car in this country to the Opel Record. They kind of look a bit similar, although the styling of the Vauxhalls a bit more sort of square-edged, but they have the same floor pan and the sort of similar doors. And registration of the Vauxhall Ventura, which is the 3.3 six-cylinder version of the Vauxhall Victor, was MXD405K, clearly a Vauxhall press car. Then there was, in one episode, which is called Action, that was supposed to be filmed in Scotland, and partially was, but mostly filmed at a place called Nebworth House near Stevenage, where I've been, which is beautiful, definitely worth a visit. So the Victor Estate is MXD415K. It's a white one. It's a sort of similar car to the one that Jeff Randall drives in Randall Hawk Deceased, although this is an FE Victor and not an FD Victor. So just to reinforce what I said before, The Adventure is not a very good series. An episode called Icons Are Forever is by far the worst ITC episode I've ever seen. It has Stanmore Hall in Stanmore standing in for some kind of cast in Italy. It's very badly shot in day for night. Don't really know what's going on. It really sort of sums it up, really. It's just not a great series, and unless you're one of these people like me, an ITC completionist, and you want to see everything that they made, I just wouldn't recommend going anywhere near it. So I hope you found this video interesting. Bit of a stern warning for those of you not familiar with the Adventure to not go anywhere near it. Don't forget to comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for more of these videos. Hopefully the series I'll be talking about next time will be a little bit better quality. Don't forget to give this video a like. My Facebook page is facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. My website is www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. If you wish for me to source a car for you, it doesn't have to be anything I've mentioned, and particularly maybe not a Chevrolet Corvette, and then please get in touch via the Contact Me page on my website. And thank you very much indeed once again for watching.